I think the beauty industry has two main problems. Just hasn't been enough research. Only 16% of the entirety of clinical trials were done on skin of color. When I was growing up, either it was my shade, but it was too thick, or it wasn't my shade at all. I grew up in a lot of different places. The experience was the same. What I've tried to do is make it inclusive, not just for tone, but also for texture. Do you have sensitive skin? Do you have dry skin? I've widened the net. I haven't kind of bottlenecked it in the sense and said, oh, it's only for these people. They're not smarter than you. They just lived longer. I don't have any self-limiting beliefs. Because what's the worst that's going to happen? Life is
Right.
short.
Where do you want Deeper Beauty to be in the next 2 years?
Um,
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Founders in Jeans. I'm your host, Emily Jean. And before we get into the episode, I just want to say a huge thank you so much for listening to my podcast. It means the world to me. It is a really special project to me. It's very close to my heart. And yeah, I just wanted to come on here and say thank you so much. I also wanted to say that if you enjoy the show, feel free to leave a review on Spotify or Apple, wherever you're listening to this, and also to follow us. You can follow us on Spotify, of course. You can follow us on Instagram at Founders and Jeans. You can also find me on Instagram at emily.jeans, or you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with people on there, and I have a lot of good conversations from listeners. Also, you can always leave a bad review for us. I'm totally fine with that. And in fact, I think that's exciting. I would love to know what we can do to improve. So you can also leave comments below and let me know what you enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy. I actually do read every single one. We also have a newsletter that comes out once a week, so you can get all the updates from us. We also put in some weekly business and marketing updates in there, as well as some personal notes from me. You can subscribe to that on my LinkedIn, also through the Instagram and in the show notes below. Anyways, that is all from me. I'm so excited for you to listen to this episode. I hope it's a good one, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye. Mitzi of Deeper Beauty. Welcome to Founders and Jeans. I'm so excited to have you on today. Why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So my name is Midzi. I am Zimbabwean. I live in Dubai. I've been here for about 8 years. And I'm the founder of Deeper Beauty, which is a melanin-friendly skincare line that's effective for all skin tones. We're also using AI skin analysis to allow people to understand more about their skin. And we're really focusing on making sure we're closing the inclusivity gap in the beauty industry. But I'll get into that more. I love anything adrenaline, so I like bungee jumping and fun things like that. I also really love anything true crime. So that's that's me.
See, and that's why I love it when guests introduce themselves because I could never do that justice. Also, happen to know because I glanced at your bio earlier, I've seen it obviously, that you are leaving so much out. Like you You are truly a genius in so many ways, and I know we'll get into that. But I'm really, really excited to have you on. I'm really excited to have this chat.
Thank you.
Um, of course, yeah. Well, why don't we just start? I have a lot of questions, but why don't we just kind of start with what sparked the original idea for Deeper Beauty?
Yeah. So originally, I think it was frustration. I am a dark-skinned Black woman, of African descent. When I was growing up, there were a lot of issues around if I wanted to find a foundation, for example. I was always in between shades. I was always trying to balance out the formula versus the effectiveness of it. So either it was my shade, but it was too thick, or it was too greasy, or it wasn't my shade at all. And so I would have to make it work with other things. And, color correction wasn't a thing back then. It was just very difficult to find something that worked for me. And I grew up in a lot of different places. So I've experienced what it's like to be in the majority and also in the minority. And I think the fascinating thing about that is that the experience was the same. So the beauty industry obviously is kind of concentrated within specific places in terms of where beauty is produced. So beauty is often produced in the US, the UK. Right now, in kind of Korean beauty skincare is very popular at the moment. And so, because there's a concentration there is a lack of understanding around skin of color more broadly, particularly black skin, but also that extends to any kind of skin of color. And so, really, it was a frustration. I wanted to make sure that I was really leaning into the gap when it comes to both the availability of the right products, but also the approach. And so, when you think about deeper beauty, one of the things that we really prioritize is making sure that people of color feel seen. And what that means is creating formulations that actually work for skin of color, but not excluding any other skin tone as well. And so, really, what I've created is a universal product. Our first product is a sunscreen, which we'll talk about later. But I think the biggest thing for me was I started this because it I was frustrated. I was frustrated,
Right.
and I wanted better, and I thought I deserved better. And so that's what I did. I went and I created something that hopefully more people can enjoy.
Right. Um, I think I think it's such a brilliant mission, not only from a marketing standpoint of things, but also like it just is it makes so much sense. Like it's like why have we not had that sooner? You know, that's the part that kind of blows me away constantly.
Oh.
Um, but I know that you have both a background in cosmetic chemistry as well as tech strategy. So I'm curious what kind of came first for you there?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this, and my career has been very meandering. And I hope when I say this, hopefully, it gives people courage who haven't had a straight kind of career path that they can do whatever they want. Really, I started off as a political journalist way back when, when I was much younger, and I was doing journalism in Southern Africa, so primarily South Africa, Zimbabwe. And then I moved to the UK. I moved to Scotland specifically. I did my master's there. I focused a lot on developmental economics, and so I kind of merged the two worlds of my experience in political journalism, but also in understanding the kind of structures of the world within the development sector. So, development sector being anything UN, Red Cross, etc. related, and how economies evolve, particularly economies that were struggling. And so when I moved to Dubai, I worked with a communications agency and I did a lot of behavioral economics programming with the UN, Red Cross, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or the Gates Foundation as it is now. And I really learned what it was like to, I suppose, center people's voices who weren't centered before, but also figure out how to make sure that things were being more efficient for them. And so, for example, I worked on programming around polio vaccination in Afghanistan, which was one of the only places that polio was still endemic at that point. And it was really important that we got the messaging right. It was important that we understood the economics of that particular community and why they weren't vaccinating their kids. And so the underlying kind of question in my career has been why, and how do we make things better for people who are otherwise vulnerable, otherwise excluded. And so that's been a running thread, at least throughout my career. When I then joined tech, it was really in the capacity of taking my understanding around everything that I had done before in the developmental world and bringing that to the tech world and understanding, okay, how do we actually make societies better with tech? And so I then launched one of the first tech for good kind of products that we had at Kareem, which was actually the region's first unicorn. Huge kind of news, obviously, for the Middle East. There wasn't a unicorn before. It was going up against a giant, being Uber. Uber ended up acquiring it. And I went through that journey with the company, which was a fascinating, fun, grueling. Anyone who works in tech will tell you that it's incredibly tiring, but also asks a lot of you, which means you're constantly leveling up. And so I then helped build our fundraising mini app, which sits on the app. And basically, what we did was we partnered with different charities. But there's a lot of kind of back work around compliance and how do you make sure you're creating actual change and raising funds for the right kinds of organizations, and how do you raise awareness about things like that. This region is particularly quite fractured when it comes to different kinds of socio and political issues as well. What do you focus on? Is it water supply? Is it women's empowerment? It could be anything, right? And so that journey really then taught me about what it is to kind of appeal to different customer segments and getting a customer to understand what it is they're buying into, particularly when it's emotional, right? I think it's one thing if we're delivering a pizza to you. It's another thing if you're buying into something that you truly believe in, and offering your money as a result. And so that was really a huge learning curve for me. I then kind of moved into the groceries vertical, which was great, and I worked with the team there to help launch our Abu Dhabi groceries offering, and it's just grocery delivery, but we owned our own dark stores. Dark stores are just stores that you can't really shop in. It's more like warehouses, which is very kind of retail heavy, and anyone who's worked in that space it's incredibly complicated. The logistics around it is very difficult. Getting people to your app just to buy something is very difficult, particularly in this region. It's very competitive. There's a lot of different platforms that offer that kind of thing. Dubai is the city of convenience, and so people tend to want everything immediately. Um, I could order something now and I'll get it in 10 minutes. And that's kind of the expectation of the customer. And so we had to continuously kind of keep up with that. It was a combination of that on offline marketing, etc. So really, like I've had a meandering career. It's been a little bit of everything. But while I was at Kineem, I kind of went back to my first love, which was always chemistry, actually. And I never pursued it, but I thought, you know what, I'm at this job, I have the means, I might as well study something that is related to what I want to do later on. And so I studied cosmetic science, and that was really the foray into, okay, so clearly the industry is not working particularly well for people who look like me. And formulations aren't particularly geared towards what my skin type is. And how do I start to close that gap? So for me, it's been my entire thread throughout my career has been how do I make people and everybody feel more seen and more comfortable and more empowered. And I think this is just one way of doing it.
Right. It's so interesting for me because I obviously am a white woman, so never really had to think about going into a drugstore and being able to find makeup like in any aisle. So like as I'm sitting here listening to it, I'm like, it sounds so incredibly frustrating not being able to have that. And then, I think too, we see these kind of trends come about where a lot of beauty lines for a while were pushing more diverse range. And I think a lot of people were getting behind that. But then looking closer, it was like, how diverse is it really? And how many skin tones was it really encapsulating? So I want to ask you, I guess, what is the inclusivity gap in beauty and why has it taken so long to address?
Yeah, it's a great question. Sorry. Okay. Um, so the inclusivity gap is really the lack of options when it comes to the beauty industry in terms of who gets the most options for their particular skin type. And so what you'll find is that there's a huge gap in terms of what kinds of products work for lighter skin tones versus what works for darker skin tones. And that gap is particularly insidious because I think the beauty industry has two main problems. The one is that there isn't a lot of research, and that I mean like clinical trials and things like that around darker skin tones. And that research allows for innovation, right? You can only know what to create next if you know what some of the problems are. And there just hasn't been enough research. And there was data around 2023 and 2024 about how only 16% of the entirety of clinical trials that were done in the UK and the US were done on skin of color. Um, which is insane. It's 16% is a tiny, percentage, and it's no wonder that the industry looks this way. And I think if you look at the second kind of issue is around, I suppose, the mysticism around the beauty industry and how there is a lot of, obviously, science and chemistry behind it. It's a quite a complicated thing to do to create things that work on skin, and so there is that knowledge gap, right, between the people who are creating and the people who are consuming. And I think that doesn't help.
Mhm.
I think what we have is a world where people who look like me tend to feel excluded, and we tend to find other ways, or we tend to make excuses for, quite frankly, companies that are massive, companies that are
Right.
worth billions of dollars. That just aren't catering to the needs of people that make up the majority of the world.
Mhm.
Which, again, as you said, it's a little crazy that it's 2025 and we're talking about this. Um, and so I think the root cause, if I were to really be honest, is a kind of general trend of racism that kind of goes all the way back to kind of medical racism, and that's really at the root and the foundation that doesn't always manifest in today's world. But I think it's been a hangover and it's kind of carried on into the way that people understand darker skin tones and the way that people understand which audiences are going to be their best buyers, or people who are actually going to kind of make them money. And so what you end up with is this, is a world where there's kind of 2 different tracks, and one track is, "Oh, we're universal," but universal doesn't actually mean me. And that's been the most frustrating part of it. So I think if you look at inclusivity, it has to be from the place of how do we make as many people feel included as possible, and
Mhm.
that means tailoring our formulations and our products to do exactly that.
Right. I think too, it's crazy on it just seems like the bare minimum. Like, it's like, what do you mean that this makeup couldn't touch so many different people in so many different phases of their life? Like,
Yeah,
that is the part that really blows my mind. Not only from like, it just seems like a purely bad business strategy alone. Like, it's like, it just seems to
I
lack
agree.
intelligence. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think part of it is everybody has blind spots, and
Mhm.
I think the way that the world is structured, about to go back to like kind of my knowledge around political structures and things like that. I think we live in a world where there is a blind spot when it comes to people of color, and I think it's not often, it's very well-meaning people. It's not often kind of driven from a place of hate. I think it's just that we live in a world where we haven't come to a place where enough people have been included in the conversation, have been included in the decision making. Um, and part of that means people like me are coming into the industry to kind of set a different precedent. Because when I'm in the room, I will tell you that actually the thing that you think works universally, it doesn't. When I put it on my skin, it looks different. And oftentimes, I mean, you'll hear this all the time. They just don't test on, on darker skin, which is fascinating, right? We keep seeing videos of influencers trying different products, for example, and they'll
Mhm.
say this is the darkest shade from X brand. And it's like, that's the darkest shade.
Mhm.
Like, that's 3 shades lighter than me, and I'm not even the darkest person in the world, right? So it's kind of like, did you try? Did
Right.
you did you
Right.
try? Did you make an effort? And I think that's what it is. It does take effort. It takes
Mhm.
intentionality. It takes, stepping outside of what is your norm and understanding the way that you see the world and the lens through which you see the world, and then saying, okay, well, this is where my understanding stops, and how do I bring in more people who might understand a different side of it? So I think to be inclusive and to chase inclusivity is to inherently make an effort. And I think effort obviously equals money.
Mhm.
And I can understand the limitations because I know that the formulation process is a complex one and it's an
Mhm.
expensive one. But that's not an excuse. I think if you part of the reason why I started with skincare and not with color cosmetics is because it is a little bit more accessible. I'm bootstrapping my business. There's no way that I could create 40 different shades of makeup at the moment. It's definitely where I
Mhm.
want to be in the future, but
Right.
it is very capital intensive. And it takes time, it takes, testing, but that is what it takes to claim to be inclusive. You
Right.
cannot then, if you're going to do that with color cosmetics, just be prepared to put in the work. That's all I'm saying.
Right. So many questions for you.
Please.
Um, yeah, 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 there's a concept, actually, I was reading about this the other day, that, like, when you create this is not the exact not a very good comparison maybe, but, like, when you create systems that help disabled people, for example, usually it helps everybody else as well, um, but companies don't consider
Yeah.
that when they're building
Yeah.
whatever it may be, and I thought that's brilliant. Also, they another point they said, was that when you almost everybody will end up disabled if they're lucky enough to at some point in their life as they get older. I think also it's like, hopefully, you will have people in your life who are not going to have the same skin color as you. Like, that's ideal, in my opinion. So,
Mm.
why would you not advocate for, a more diverse of anything, but especially as it applies to skincare slash makeup, that like it could benefit you in your life and so many others. So, anyways, I just thought that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, I think you're right. I think when people often ask me or when they talk about my brand, they say it's a niche brand. And while I understand the thinking behind that, it kind of makes me recoil slightly because it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. And it's niche in my approach in the sense that it's not the approach that every other brand would take, but it's not niche in its application. And
Mhm.
so I think there's a big difference. And if you talk about, and I'm just going to go into sunscreen if that's okay,
Of
but
course, of
I
course.
think so when I made my product, there were 2 things to consider. One
Mhm,
was, is it going to give people the protection that they need, i.e., are you protected from the sun, from UVA and UVB rays? That's the bare minimum. The second is it aesthetically pleasing? And I think in the past, the thinking has been, does it protect you? Whether it's aesthetically pleasing was like very low down on the list.
mhm,
And I can understand that that question may sound like it's frivolous, but it's not in a world where you're trying to create a habit for people to constantly use sun care, right? You're not going to protect yourself against the sun with a product that makes you look crazy. It's
mhm,
just not going to
mhm,
happen. So if I
mhm.
want people to continue to use sunscreen, then I'm going to make sure that it looks good on their skin.
Right.
And I think that is to your point about um, how sometimes when you solve a problem for people who are at the margins, you end
Mhm,
up including everybody. It's so important because when I was at my first ever market, I had a little booth and I was exhibiting, and people would pass by and ask me questions about my brand. And one of the things that I used to worry about was my positioning because our tagline is melanin deserves more. And
mm,
somebody said to me way back when, they said, "Well, you're just going to exclude all the white people." I said, "Well, maybe." Okay, I let it go and I said, "Okay." But it was something that was in the back of my mind of like, "Okay, am I like, is this the right positioning? Like, am I
mm,
just like shooting myself in the foot?" Because I didn't want that to be the case, but I also knew what the ethos was behind it. The funny thing is, at this booth, my first 5 customers were all white. Um, and the same thing came from them, which was, I just don't like how sunscreen feels.
mhm,
My problem is not the white cast because, yeah, I might have a bit of a white cast, but usually it kind of blends in after a few minutes and I can kind of get on with my day.
mm,
Um, but I don't like how greasy it is. I don't like how sticky it is. I don't like how it feels like I've put like paste on my face. I want it to be lightweight. And so inadvertently, what I did was I created a product that allows everybody to address each pain point that they have. the biggest pain point I had was a white cast.
Mm.
But the biggest pain points that other people have is greasiness, or it's too sticky, or I just don't like the way it smells. And so there were all these different points that I took into consideration when it comes to inclusivity. I had somebody come to me who said they had sensitive skin, for example. They really couldn't, they had sensitive skin, they reacted to a lot of different things. And my products adjust that. It's also for sensitive skin, it's also for
Mhm.
acne prone skin. And so actually, when you look at inclusivity, what I've tried to do is make it inclusive not just for tone, but also for texture, i.e., do you have sensitive skin, but also for type as well. You know, do you have dry skin? Do you have normal skin? Is it oily? Is it combination? And I think that kind of encompassing kind of area of inclusivity is just really important for me because I've widened the net. I haven't kind of, bottlenecked it in the sense and said, "Oh, it's only for these people." No, I may have made it so that it's comfortable for these people, but
Mhm.
actually in application, it works for everybody.
I also think sunscreen too is so specific because it's a bit of a maybe familial is the wrong word, but, like, you share it with people. Like, you're at the beach and you
Yeah,
say, "Hey, do you
yeah,
need to borrow this?"
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so it totally makes sense to me that that would be a product that should be as inclusive as possible. Theoretically, all
Precisely.
products, but a great
Mhm.
place to start. Um, yeah, I actually my cousin, Joseph, he's black and he has really dark skin, and, he doesn't use a very popular brand of sunscreen in the States, because it has a cast, and my other cousin, Jesse, is, really allergic to it as well. So then it's becomes those one of those things that when you go down to the beach, I'm not gonna consider even buying that brand anymore because why would I if I know I can't pass it to my cousin when they need it?
Mhm.
But so anyways, I could talk about that forever, specifically about sunscreen. But I'm curious. I want to focus in on this because it's kind of a bit unique. So why start in the GCC market? And how are you planning to expand kind of beyond that?
Yeah, so if you look at the beauty industry widely, in terms of the GCC, it's a huge industry here. People take their skincare, their health, their wellness very seriously, particularly in this region,
Mhm.
particularly in the UAE, which is where I'm based. And it is an incredible place to build. One, because the environment allows for it. Corporate tax is relatively low. The barrier of entry in terms of getting your licensing, your registration, and things like that is also relatively low.
Mm.
Um, there is no there's not a lot of barriers in terms of starting something. I found an incredibly competent lab. It's a French lab that has a Middle Eastern headquarters here. And so I've worked with different chemists from that lab that are here to help me bring this to life. And I think the importance of being able to have that access was really integral in terms of my decision of where I was going to begin. But also this region, I mean, I live in one of the sunniest places in the world. It's pretty much sunny every day.
Mhm.
It is the best place to consider what the sun can do to your skin,
Mhm.
because it is so relentless. And so it made sense to have a sunscreen that comes from a place like this, that has this kind of climate, that can withstand this kind of heat. And so it was partially that, and I think also, Dubai has been such a huge part of my journey, in terms of career-wise, in terms of what I've been able to do for myself personally, um, and so it felt right to start here, and the opportunity within this particular industry is huge, so I definitely wanna be able to make sure that I'm making my mark within the industry in the region. My plan in terms of expansion, I'm starting off with the UAE. Saudi is going to be my next market. I'm looking at Qatar. I'm looking at Kuwait.
Mhm.
But then I'd love to be able to explore the EU, different parts of Africa as well. I think there's a lot of opportunity within those markets as well. So it's definitely right now a local brand, and in the next year will hopefully be at least a regional and partially international.
Great, I love that goal. I think that's very realistic.
I think,
Um,
well, I mean, I hope so.
so where you're sitting for entrepreneurs listening to this, and they're like, I have a product, I'm ready to go to market. Do you recommend then starting where you're starting in GCC?
100%.
Yeah.
I think if I were to think about all of the things that I've had to go through, the steps of just getting this product to market,
Mm,
I can guarantee if I was in any other place, it would have taken me twice as
right.
long, twice as much money, if not three
Mm,
times more. Um, there is something that this country particularly has gotten right when it comes to being a place that enables expats to get a project, a business off the ground.
mhm,
Um, there's a lot of support here, but it's also the kind of place where, I mean, the majority of us are expats. And so when I go into different communities and networking groups for different entrepreneurs, it's a very supportive environment.
mm,
There isn't a lot of gatekeeping. So I love to say to people, like, you're always only like two or three people removed from the person you actually want to speak to. It's a big enough but also small enough place that people tend to know each other. And so, if you're plugged into the right networking groups, you can honestly gain access to spaces that you otherwise wouldn't have. And it's incredible because everyone has such a spirit of like sharing information, sharing knowledge. And so it's a very supportive environment. I don't feel like I've been disadvantaged in that way at all. And I think that's really why I think this place is a beautiful place to build a business.
yeah, that's good to know. I feel like Dubai's been kind of trending a little bit in the entrepreneurship space, and I think like popular things are popular for a reason. Like,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly,
usually.
exactly.
Um, okay, well, I kind of want to get into the science a little bit behind things. So I want to talk to you. What does inclusive formulation science actually mean in practice? And I'm sure that's a little bit of a big question. But,
No, I mean it's exactly why deeper exists. So in the simplest form, if I were to take one thing as an example, so my sunscreen has a range of different ingredients. If you look at what it is, it's a hybrid sunscreen of chemical and mineral UV blockers. Those are just ingredients. And what that means is you need to think about what those UV blockers do on your actual skin. So if you think
Mhm,
about sunscreen and how popular it used to be way back when, it was often mineral sunscreen. And mineral sunscreen has zinc oxide and it has titanium dioxide as the main UV blockers. Those two ingredients are white. They'll always just the white color. Um, which means they're very difficult to to mix with anything else, to make it look less white. And even if you try and mix it, you could end up looking a little gray, or a little purple, depending on what
mhm,
else you put into the formulation. Now, there are other ways to mask that. So you'll have some brands that will have a mineral sunscreen that is tinted, and the tint kind of helps if you've really mixed the colors well. It helps to create or reduce that white cast that is inevitably created by titanium dioxide and zinc
mm,
oxide. Now, if you look at chemical sunscreen, it has what they call modern UV filters. Modern is a bit of a misnomer. They were created in the late 90s, early 2000s, mostly from the EU. But what they did is they disrupted this idea that you could only use zinc oxide and titanium dioxide to protect yourself from UV rays. And
mhm,
what they did is they extended the protection from UVA rays. So UV split into two things. UVB is responsible mainly for burning. It's also responsible for this new research that's come out that says that it's also responsible for aging and things like that, but mainly for burning. So if you get a sunburn, it's usually UVB. Um, UVA rays are responsible for aging and for hyperpigmentation, which is obviously a concern of a lot of people of color is hyperpigmentation, having different tones of brown across your skin, which is a result of sun damage. Now, if you look at the way that these filters work, UVA protection and UVB protection combined together gives you a broad spectrum. So when you see the label broad spectrum, it just means that you're protected against UVB, which is burning more broadly, and UVA, which is aging. It's an easy way to kind of remember the
Mhm.
two. Um, and that gives you a full coverage, right? And then you have the sun protection factor. Is it SPF 30? Is it 50, etc.? Anything 30 and above is what's recommended in terms of having the best kind of protection. My sunscreen is SPF 50 for that extra bit of protection as well. Now, if we then take the second layer of how do you make sure that it's as inclusive as possible? So, what I've done is I've said I'm going to use less of the zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. So, I do have titanium dioxide, but I have it at a low concentration. And the
Mhm.
higher concentration is all of the UV filters that are chemical based. And so, my sunscreen is really a hybrid. It's a hybrid between mineral and chemical sunscreen.
Mhm.
Add on to that and make sure that it is as inclusive as possible. Skin of color tends to have a lot of transepidermal water loss, which means that we don't retain as much water. So we tend to get drier quickly, basically. Um, which is why like a lot of black people will say, oh, you look ashy today because you haven't put on any lotion. You just come out of the shower, you don't put on any lotion, you look ashy. And so to avoid that, we wear lotion all the time. Um, Now, what we've done to make sure that we control for that is we've added in shea and jojoba, which are two ingredients that are really helpful, not just in moisturization, but also in barrier boosting. So, your skin barrier is what, if that skin barrier is healthy, that's what gives you that kind of glow. You don't look sick or sickly, and your skin is actually healthy. Whether it looks a certain way is a different topic, but it's actually healthy. And so we've made
Yeah.
sure that the ingredients are helping you, one, moisturize more, two, make sure that your barrier is being boosted as well. We also have sodium hyaluronate, which is a derivative of hyaluronic acid, which is super popular in the skincare industry at the moment.
Mhm.
Definitely something that is used for moisturization, but sodium hyaluronate has smaller molecules, which means it penetrates your skin even deeper. And so
Mhm.
we've focused on something that, yes, protects you from the sun comprehensively, UVA and UVB, but also considers the very specific factors around people of color's skin and how it's built. And therefore, we create something that allows it to be more moisturizing, that allows it to also boost your skin barrier as well. And so it sounds like pretty obvious, right? It sounds like one of those things where any brand should be thinking about that, but actually it's that one extra step where it's like
Mhm.
you could put any ingredient. I mean, we could have not put those ingredients in and it would have worked just as
Mhm.
well, but it wouldn't have had that extra layer of consideration when it comes to skin of color and what it goes through. And so
Mhm.
inclusivity science is just saying, hey, this group of people, they tend to have this kind of condition, right? Now, that if we put in this ingredient, then we're actually helping them deal with that particular condition. So my
Mhm.
sunscreen as well is also UVA. It has the highest level of UVA protection. One
Mhm.
of the tests that does that is from Japan. It is the PA factor. So if you've seen like PA with some pluses next to it, I have PA 4 pluses, which is the highest level of UVA protection. Again, UVA causes hyperpigmentation. Hyperpigmentation is dominantly experienced by people of color. And so it's all these tiny little details that like you have to add in to make sure that people can see that you've taken the time and the consideration to make their skin compatible with your
Mhm.
formulation. So yeah, that's inclusivity science. It's it's more complex than this, but this is the kind of
Mhm.
simple way of understanding how you make sure that you're being intentional with your formulation, so that it caters to people who otherwise have not been catered to.
You are a genius.
I think
Like, that
I
is
am not.
I'm like trying to wrap that. It sounds simple to you. In my head, I'm like, "That's a lot. That's a lot, girl. I'm trying to trying to keep
It
up with all of that."
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I mean, to me, it's like, yeah, okay, that makes a lot
Mhm.
of sense,
Mhm.
but I don't think I think that when you are making any kind of product, you have a lot of
Mhm.
different considerations, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot of things that you need to make sure you're doing well. There's a lot of regulations you have to adhere to, etc. So there's a lot that goes into why you've added this ingredient into this particular formula. And
Mhm.
so I can understand from a kind of logical perspective where you're maybe the last thing you're thinking about is
Mhm.
how does this work, particularly for skin of color?
Right.
And I think that's where the failure of the industry is, where it's like we already have 20 million things to consider before
Mhm.
we, create this product. We're probably not going to think about the people of color because it's just not really, on our radar,
Right.
which is upsetting. But I can also understand it. And so I think it takes that person in the room who's going to say, "It's not enough. It's not
Mhm.
enough that you've made something that protects me against the sun. What you need to do is make sure that I'm going to wear it, and that a lot of people are going to wear it." And
Right.
aside from that, you're also considering what kind of skin, how my skin is built to make sure that people like me are going to use it not just because it's good for my skin and protecting me from the sun, but because it feels good. It
Mhm.
feels good and it does all those other things that I want something that I put on my skin to do. And so
Mhm.
oftentimes what I'll get from people is, "Hey, I use your sunscreen as a moisturizer." And I'm like, "Yeah,
Mhm.
that was the point." The point
Mhm.
is that you don't have a separate product. You just have one that you put on that's going to protect you from the skin, but that also doesn't make you look ashy.
Right.
Simple as
Right.
that.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a really interesting point too. I'm curious then, considering, like, as you just said, you have a list of a bajillion things you're kind of ticking off and handling, managing all at once. What
Yeah.
has been the most difficult part so far of, bringing this lab work into a product that people actually want to use?
I think it's been explaining, and I say this, the chemists that I work with are incredible.
Mhm.
But even they aren't trained to think about skin of color, and
Mhm.
oftentimes not experienced in making things that are supposed to work for skin of color. And
Mhm.
so the iterations, I went through 4 or 5 different iterations before I got the final formula that I have now. And the first one was completely off, just like completely. It left a white cast,
Mhm.
and they were surprised that it left a white cast. And I had said to them, "Listen, at this concentration of this particular ingredient, I'm not sure this is going to work out." And they said, "No, it will." And I said, "Okay, let's try it out." And it didn't work. um,
Mhm.
and it, it was surprising because if you're not constantly testing on darker skin, you don't realize how bad it's going to look until you actually put
Mhm.
it on your skin. And oftentimes, a lot of people in labs don't have human subjects. They'll have like these different like color squares, right, of like different kinds of skin tones. And so they'll test based on that. But that's not enough, right? Like skin operates very
Right.
differently from whatever kind of test thing that you have. And so they're just not exposed to it. So I think the most difficult thing was having the conversation of, yes, I understand where you're coming from. I know you've made sunscreen a million times, um,
Mhm.
but let me explain that this is not going to work for this particular subset of people.
Mhm.
Um, and what we're trying to do is make sure that it really works for everybody, all the way from Scandinavia to South Sudan, right? And everything in
Mhm.
between. And I think that was the most difficult part. The second thing was, um, I guess the storytelling around it. I hate making content. I hate, like yeah, the world that we live in now requires, because I'm a founder-led brand, it requires that I show up consistently,
Mhm.
and that I talk consistently about my brand, which
Mhm.
I love doing, but I also, there's days when I also just kind of wanna sit in my pajamas and not really speak to anyone or talk about anything at all.
Right.
And so I think the second hardest part wasn't actually the formulation. It was like, how am I gonna sell this thing? Um,
Mm.
how do I make money off of this? How do I make sure that I've accounted for all of my cost of goods, and like what do I do in terms of distribution, and where do I sell it? Do I just do my website? Do I go on an e-commerce platform? Is it, how viable is retail? Obviously Sephora is my North Star. Actually, I don't know if they dropped Huda. they drop Huda Beauty, I don't know. I think we're still waiting for the
Yeah.
but we're still waiting for the verdict. But yeah, if they drop Huda, then they're not my North Star. But I
Yeah.
think the
Yeah.
prior to all of this, Sephora
Yeah.
was my North Star.
Yeah.
But that's a huge undertaking, millions of dollars of capital that often goes into that. And so
Right.
it's the creation of the formula, knowing that I
Mhm.
know that this is going to be good for a universal spectrum of shades and types and textures. But then it's okay, but how do I actually get this to market? And I
Right.
think that's a huge kind of area that I'm still working on as
Right.
a business owner. Yeah.
Right. 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 And a lot of responsibility, like,
Yeah.
especially, it's like you're kind of, it sounds like to me, you can correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, but sounds like you're a little bit of like, expected to be a spokesperson for something that should be quite obvious in many ways. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I think that potentially the most disheartening part about it, is how obvious this seems to me,
Mm,
um, but and to so many people of color, but not to everybody else. And so in the beginning, I thought, "Oh, okay, I'm just gonna go." I would do pitches at different events and networking and things like that, and tell people about my business, and everyone's eyes would light up, and they would
mm,
say, "Ah, I've never thought about," and I would be like, like, you've never you've
right.
never thought about this? It consumes my thoughts every day. But, it it's fascinating because I also then realized that I live in this body, and so, of course, I think about it. Of course, it's obvious to me. But I've had to kind of almost over explain myself, in many
Mm,
scenarios where, like, I thought this was obvious.
right.
But
Right.
it's not. It's not, and it in many ways, it breaks my heart.
Right.
But in a lot of ways, I see the opportunity to educate, and I see the opportunity to change people's behavior. And I think, if you think about innovation within this space, innovation is not just creating something new, it's changing a behavior. It's creating something that people can actually use to change something within their lives. And that's hopefully what I'm contributing to. That I'm not the only person of color who's building a beauty brand in the world. There's so many of them that I have so much respect for. And
Mhm,
it takes time, it takes intention, but it also means that we're slowly changing the way that beauty operates and the way
mhm.
that people behave and how they buy and what they invest in. So hopefully that's the outcome of all of the the work that I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a really that's a very powerful sentiment. Um, Missy, I don't wanna take up too much of your time. I wanna be cognizant of your time
Okay,
and not.
keep the questions. I blocked off. I said, listen, I'm gonna block off like a good 2 hours
Okay,
I
perfect.
got the sense. I was like, I think Emily likes to yap, so let
Yeah,
me
yeah,
just like yeah. Okay, there we go.
Okay, good, good. Then I'm not gonna okay, good, then I won't wrap up yet. Perfect. I'm so excited to hear
Yeah,
that. Good, because I really wanted to talk to you about AI in particular.
yeah,
And I know that's a bit of a change in subject, but
yeah.
um, yeah, so I want to, you mentioned AI briefly there at the beginning. I kind of want to see, first, I want to start with an overview. How do you see AI transforming like how we approach to skincare in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So I think the first thing I'll say is I'll be cognizant of the fact that AI is very complex at the
Mm,
moment. I think it has both very positive and very negative sentiments.
mm,
Um, we are in a place of, I think, change in the sense that we're so early in the AI journey in general.
uh-huh,
I know it doesn't feel that way, but honestly, we really are.
uh-huh,
Um, and there's so much more room for growth, and where that goes is slightly dicey at the moment. Um, but if I were to look at the context of kind of AI within beauty, I think if you look at AI and what it's been able to do around consumer habits, it's really been able to personalize the journeys of different people, whether that's you buying a pair of jeans, or whether it's something else. And I think when you look at skincare, so one of the things that I'm kind of building at the moment is a skincare analysis tool. And basically, you upload a photo of your face or scan your face, and it tells you you have dry patches here, or, hyperpigmentation there, and spits out a routine that works for you specifically based on some of the questions that you've answered as well. What kind of habits do you have? How much do you sleep? What kind
Mhm.
of diet do you have? And all of these different concerns that you may have. Is it fine lines? Is it oily skin, etc.? And so you have a kind of, a report that then tells you here's what you can do according to your specific skin type. And here are some products that we think would work for you. The
Mhm.
second layer is then, okay, do you actually want to see a dermatologist? And here are some dermatologists that we would recommend, particularly for you and your skin tone, because you are a person of color. Here is a dermatologist who has worked on other people who are of color as well. And so
Mhm.
what we're trying to do is build that pipeline as well. So it's a kind of B2C, B2B offering in that sense. Um, but really, what we've done, and I think that that kind of underpins a lot of this, is AI models will be as good as how you train them, right? And
Mhm.
so what we've done is really focus on making sure we're training the model with images of people of color. And that's actually a huge gap within the dermatology space in general. There was research that came out recently about how it was about 8% of the images in the medical journals that were being used in schools, by the way. Like, this is people actually becoming dermatologists, were people of color. And I've been in situations where, I mean, this happened to me a few years ago, actually. I got misdiagnosed. I was told I had eczema. I didn't have eczema. I just had contact dermatitis, which actually is quite mild, and you can kind of treat that pretty well,
Yeah.
and pretty easily. Eczema is kind of lifelong in that sense. It's quite rare for you to pick it up at this age. It
Mhm.
would have been very, very rare. It usually
Mhm.
happens earlier on in your life. And so I kind of questioned it and thought, this is a bit strange. But then when you realize that a lot of people haven't been trained on what eczema actually looks like on darker skin tones,
Mhm.
they may mistake it for something else. And then they may not run the test that they should be running. And so these issues, they permeate into every single layer of like my existence, right? And
Mhm.
so I think the biggest thing for us was making sure that we continuously were training it on the kinds of conditions that show up on a very wide range of skin tones. And that hopefully then creates a more accurate result, which then allows you to then go off and create a routine that makes sense for you. And so we're
Mhm.
we're still in the kind of midst of building it. Anybody who's built a product, it's just like, yeah, bane of anyone's existence because there's
Mhm.
always something that goes wrong and
Right.
always something that needs fixing. But we'll be rolling out the MVP next month, and getting a few
Mhm.
people to do the beta testing. But I'm excited because I think the opportunity for people to understand more about their skin, to understand what it is their skin needs, particularly people of color who have not necessarily been part of the conversation, I
Mhm.
think it's huge. And I think the personalized nature of it, is really important as well because skin is so personal. What works for me doesn't work for somebody else, even of the same shade, even of the same texture. And so I think it's really important that we take all of these holistic things into consideration. The questionnaire is there for a reason, right? I think our lifestyle habits, etc., all of that contributes to what your skin looks like. And so a
Mhm.
holistic view of wellness that is also inclusive, I think, is made in part possible through the use of AI.
Yeah. You're intersecting AI with beauty in a very, in my opinion, unique way. I mean, I'm not the biggest expert on how AI is being used in beauty right now. Um, I want to know, I guess, I know that you've worked in both tech, media, public, XYZ. How has that kind of multidisciplinary approach shaped how you're running your company now?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is, I don't have any uh, limiting beliefs. I
Mm.
think, and I think that comes from the fact that I've worked on so many things. And the fact that I've failed so many times on those many different things. Um, I don't think if I had started this business a few years ago, I don't think I would have the confidence that I have now. I
Mm,
think that the the combination of all of the different paths that I've walked in terms of my career has allowed me to have multiple skill sets, but it's also allowed me to look under the hood of a lot of things that seemingly, people don't look under the hood of, which
mhm.
also means I'm exposed to people who work on those things, which also means I'm exposed to how they're not smarter than me.
Right, right,
Yeah,
right.
the more you know, right? The more you know, the more
Yeah.
you meet people, the more you sit in these boardrooms with VPs of whatever and senior directors of whatever, you
Mhm.
start to realize they don't they're not smarter than you.
Right,
They
right.
just lived longer. They've just
Mhm.
lived long. They've had more time. I mean, this man is 47, right? He's had more
Right,
time to
right.
fail. He's had more time to figure things out. He's had more time to change direction, and to get
Mhm,
advice and mentorship and all of these things that contribute to your career success. And so I think me being in different places has not just given me different skills, which also comes in handy, right? The fact that I can write well, the fact that I can analyze data, the fact that I have knowledge around products, and like all of those different things contribute to where I am now. But
mhm.
the most important thing is that they're not smarter than me. that's
Mhm.
that's
Yeah,
my takeaway.
yeah.
My takeaway is, yeah, of course I can do this. Like, because
Mhm.
why not? If they can do
Yeah,
it, why can't
yeah,
I do it? And
yeah,
if I don't know something, I can learn it because
yeah.
that's what I've done my entire career. If I didn't know
Right,
something, I was
right,
forced to learn it.
right.
Um, and that I think has been the greatest gift, to be
Mhm,
honest. I don't think I'm particularly smart. I think I just read a lot
mhm,
and I just learn things.
mm.
And that's how you get ahead, in
Right,
my opinion. And by being
right.
open and open to being in diverse places. And me sitting with an engineer and understanding only about 2% of what he was saying,
Mhm,
and then going back and asking questions and figuring things out and understand, okay, this is how this particular thing works. And here is the logic behind this particular AI model. And how do we translate that to the average person? Well, this is
mhm.
how you communicate it. Just because this is what it looks like on the back end doesn't mean that's what it looks like on the front end, right?
Right.
So it's all of these different things that I've created, I think, my career as it is now. But yeah, the biggest thing is, man, like, I don't have any self-limiting beliefs because what's the worst that's gonna happen? Like,
Mhm,
what, like,
uh-huh.
you know what I mean? I'm just like, life is
Right,
short. Life
right.
is short. So yeah. And it's like this idea that like, man, throw that idea away that you can't do it. Says
Mhm,
who?
mhm.
Seriously, says
Right.
who?
Yeah.
And I think the moment I stopped second guessing myself, and the moment I stopped thinking this was beyond me or beyond my scope or understanding or whatever, that's when I really started to take some risks and some calculated risks, of course. But, I think at the end of the day, if you don't bet on yourself, I mean, man, nobody else will,
Mm.
or at least they will up until a point. Um, and then after that, it's all you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't even know what your original question was, but all I'm saying is they're not smarter than
Yes.
you.
Yes, yes. And to that, I agree.
They're not smarter than you. That's it.
That's perfect. That's all we needed, actually. No.
That's the only takeaway.
I have some this is my favorite. I'm sure you saw in the outline where it says fun and offbeat questions.
Yeah.
My assistant always puts that in. I think it's the cutest way to phrase it. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah, they are fun and offbeat. Okay, so I think this is a really good question. If you could peek into anyone's skincare cabinet, who would it be?
Yeah. God, I was thinking about this. And it's a hard question because there's so many.
Mhm,
There's so
for sure.
many. Um, but there is, what's his name? There's a cosmetic chemist. His name is Julian.
Mhm,
He is Black, I want to say Canadian.
mhm,
Um, and he tests sunscreens. That's just what he does. And he talks about them and he, does all these fun videos about them and the science behind it. And he always has such a measured way of looking at skincare because I
hmm,
think you can buy into the hype and it's obviously it would be to my benefit, right, as somebody who owns a beauty company to tell
mhm,
you to buy all these different things.
right,
Um, but actually really what you need is a cleanser and then whatever you're treating, whether it's fine lines or wrinkles or hyperpigmentation, sunscreen and a moisturizer.
mhm,
Like,
mhm,
everything else is extra, really. Everything else is
yeah,
extra.
yeah,
Everything else is fun and it's sexy and it's cute, and you should definitely do it if it makes you feel better,
right,
but it's not needed. And so I love his approach because it is so simplistic in nature.
mm,
And I'd love to use whatever he's using because
yeah,
I know that it's good and it's not
yeah,
just like gimmicky.
yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. That's great. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to look him up. You said Julian? I'll look it up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. His name is Julian. I'm actually gonna check now. And his
Yes,
name is
please do.
he has the best videos, specifically on sunscreen.
Mm,
Wait 1 second.
yeah, no worries.
I swear it's Julian. Is it Julian? Yeah, Dr. Julian Sass.
Okay, Julian Sass.
SASS. Yeah, Dr. Julian Sass. Honestly, best. Like, and I actually one of the things that caught my attention was he did this video where he analyzed I don't know if you heard about Tower 28, but they had this sunscreen that came out that was universal and he looked like a ghost when he put
Oh
it
my
on.
god.
So it
Okay.
was yeah, and he was kind
Mhm,
of talking about like, the claims that brands can make and yeah, I just think it's really
mm,
great that we have so much of that on the internet as well, of
yeah,
just like people
yeah,
showing what products actually look like before you spend
right,
your hard-earned cash on them.
right,
Really
right.
helpful. So I don't know how his bank account is doing because he does a lot of a lot of
Yeah,
these, but hopefully he's getting them for free.
yeah, good, good. Okay, interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look him up. It's good to
Yeah.
know. I love that answer. Do you have a personal can't live without it beauty product?
I was afraid to answer this question. I'm just like, I that's a hard question.
You can say your own. Like, I think I would assume, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say my own, but I didn't wanna be that person.
No,
Yeah.
no, I'm totally in support of being that person.
Okay, fine. It is the Blocked and Busy
Mhm,
SPF
mhm.
50 sunscreen by Deepa Beauty.
Yeah.
I mean, I say this, obviously I'm biased, but it truly feels like a dream.
Mhm.
And I think the biggest thing that I have received that has warmed my heart is just people's reviews on it.
Mm,
It's not just me and it's not just people I know either. In the beginning it's like, "Okay, yeah, you're my cousin, you have to say that."
right.
Um, but from people I don't know at all, saying all of this is incredible. So that's definitely my can't live without anymore. Before I actually started this journey, I would have said the Snail Mucin from Cosrx. It's a Korean
Mm,
brand.
mhm.
And I know
Yeah,
Snail
I have
Mucin's
that in my
obviously
cupboard right now. Love that stuff.
Love it. I love it. And it's a very kind of love or hate kind of product because there's people who
Mhm.
hate the consistency of it,
Right,
which I
right,
totally understand, which I totally
right.
understand. I don't mind things like that. So
Yeah.
it's one of the things that honestly it's a perfect product. It
Mhm,
hydrates incredibly well. If I put that on before I go to bed at night, I mean, it's just
mhm.
incredible. So
Yeah,
yeah, I would have said that. But now, of course, it's my sunscreen.
yeah, yeah, of course. I am so curious how they harvest, for lack of a better word, the
Oh, they
snail meat.
synthetically created.
Oh,
They
it's okay, well,
no, no, no. They don't do it anymore.
and that's why we have experts here to remind me of reality.
Yeah,
I just assumed
exactly.
I had somebody like I imagine some like sweet lady who's like out
Just like,
here massaging the snail or
"I'm
something.
so sorry about this.
Yeah.
Can I just like a little of you?" Yeah,
Okay,
I
good.
mean, that would first of all, they would not be, as successful as they are because it would take them a very long time.
Sure.
They
I'm
would
sure.
run out of stock like that and then just be able to replace it in a year's time.
You've just
But
busted the biggest beauty myth for me. Like, I'm sure nobody else thinks that as well, but for me, to
no,
hear
I mean,
that
it
in
is that's how it started, right? That's how it started.
Mhm,
But
mhm,
I mean, and I think this is also an important point because I think one of my pet peeves
mhm,
is the clean beauty trend. Now, I'm not totally opposed to it. It's just that it is often conflated with this is good for you because it's not made in a lab. This
mm,
is good for you because it's organic, because it's
interesting.
naturally occurring. Number one, the problem with that is that it's not sustainable at all, right? Can you
Mm,
imagine if everything we made was organic? We would run out,
right,
like we would just run out.
right,
We
right,
would just run
right.
out. Number two, it is also a misnomer because I think when you think about clean, there's no regulation around what is clean. The
Mm,
section that you see in Sephora where it says clean beauty, that is based on a kind of popular understanding of what clean means.
mhm,
There is no regulation around it. So there's
mm,
no body that says you need to have X percentage of this and that. It's not regulated. So that can create some murkiness around whether something is clean or it's not. And the third thing is that there is a kind of, the lab created things are the boogeyman.
mm,
And that's just not true. It's just not true. I can
right,
guarantee most of the things you're putting on your face were created were created on a
right,
lab, created
right.
in somebody's kitchen. It would be highly unsustainable, and the industry would not exist as it exists right now. But also, particularly when it comes to sunscreen, you cannot create that yourself. There is no
Right,
such thing. No
right.
such thing as, and people ask me all the time, like, "Oh, is this like, natural? Is it like clean?" I'm like, it, there's no there is no such thing as
Yeah,
a sunscreen that I derived from the plant that's, like, in my
right.
backyard. It's just not that that's not a thing, and anyone who's telling you that it is lying to you.
Yeah,
And you are not getting the SPF 50 that they're saying you're getting.
right.
And so it is disturbing to see some of these myths come about again.
Mhm,
Um, so I do wanna say that, like, the lab is not inherently evil.
yeah.
Just saying that.
That is brilliant. Thank you for saying that because I think me as a consumer, I have been able to recognize that on some conscious level, and yet marketing still works, and I'm like
Of
attract
course.
drawn to that.
Yeah.
It is the trending topic
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate you saying that. I think that's a really good like myth to bust, for lack of a better phrase. But yeah, brilliant. I want to ask you, kind of to wrap up a little bit here, where do you want Deeper Beauty to be in the next 2 years?
Yeah. In the next 2 years, I'm hoping that I have a suite of 5 different products.
Mm,
My brand focuses on 3 specific areas. So the big one is sun care, the second is, uneven skin tone, so hyperpigmentation, and the third one is hydration. So
mhm,
all of my products will kind of layer, up to that particular pillar structure. Um, and so I'm looking at having more products, but I'm also looking at being in more places. And so 2 years from now, I would love to be in all of the Gulf countries, in a few countries in Africa, a few countries in the EU. But I'd also love to see the evolution of deeper, kind of getting into more clinical trial space as well. And so I'd love to be able to work with different institutions, and different labs to kind of make sure that we're doing more research around skin of color,
mhm,
which is completely different. I mean, that's a huge topic, very expensive to do, and so I would definitely need to be in partnership with different institutions, whether it's universities or otherwise. I would love to be able to contribute not just to the products that are on the shelves, but also to the research and the knowledge, that goes with it. And hopefully that's the mark that I leave behind.
mhm. Oh, that's great. Um, Manifesting all of that for you. And
Thank
I feel like that's a bit of a cringe phrase now, but I'm sure it'll
you.
happen.
You pulled it off. You pulled it off. You pulled it off.
It left my mouth and I was like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh."
Should I
Um,
say that? You should
yeah.
say, just say it. It's fine.
Um, okay, well, I wanna do some rapid fires with you because this is my favorite part. Well, it won't be my favorite part of this conversation probably, but okay. My first one is, what is one beauty myth? Oh, well, we kind of got into this, but maybe have a different answer. What is one beauty myth you wish people would stop believing?
That sunscreen is toxic.
Done. Period. No other words.
She's like,
Mm,
yeah. Emily's
yeah,
like, done. It's no longer,
yeah.
no one believes it anymore. It's done.
And it's solved. And it's solved. And thank you for your service.
Love it.
um, okay. AI and beauty. What do you think is the most exciting thing about it right now?
The hyper personalization of skincare. I
Mhm,
think coming up with routines and ingredients and things that work for you specifically, particularly for people who haven't been part of the conversation. I think that's the most exciting thing.
mhm. Great. Um, what is your go-to self-care ritual after a long day?
Ooh, chocolate chip cookie.
Oh,
And I but I'm very specific. I'm a
okay.
chocolate lover. But
Okay.
when I say love, I'm obsessed. Like
Okay.
truly. If
Okay.
you give me a bad chocolate, I will cut you out of my life, truly.
Day ruined. Okay, got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. But that's it. The relationship's
Okay.
over. So very specific about my chocolate chip cookies. So chocolate chip cookie, some rooibos tea. I don't know if you know what rooibos is, but it's a
Mhm. Mhm.
okay, good.
Yep.
Some rooibos tea, and a true crime podcast episode.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, mm, that really touches me. Like that I'm like, "That sounds so good."
Sounds like bliss, just
Yeah, that's amazing.
yeah.
Okay, love that. So specific too. Okay, my last question is, this is a really good question, I think. I hate saying that because it's like, well, I came up with them.
It's a bit self-congratulatory, but okay. She's
This
like,
is a really good
yeah,
question.
'cause that's just what I do. I create great questions.
No problem. Um,
That's so funny.
okay. What do you have one course or resource or book or anything like that for kind of budding entrepreneurs that you would recommend?
Ooh, okay. I know this is a super cliche, but his name is Simon Sinek.
Mhm.
His name is Simon Sinek. Start with Y. Um,
Really good one.
that was, I think, the first time that I read something that made me think, "Oh, yeah, I could do this." I
Mhm.
could definitely be an entrepreneur. I think there was something about the way that he shifted the way that I thought about um, business and how to lead in a way that's intentional and how to create, or how to r- kind of get rid of your confirmation biases and how to step outside of yourself to create something that matters. That that really resonated with me. So I know
Mm,
he's super popular and like whatever, but he's
mhm. Yeah.
right. But he's right.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Great book. I feel like that's very on theme for you. Like that
think
tone.
so. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm so excited I got to have you on, Mitzi. This has been like so informative for me. And
Pleasure.
so I think will be really informative for a lot of people.
I'm
Where
so
can
happy.
people find you and where can they find Deeper Beauty?
Sure. So we have Instagram on it's deeperbeauty.co on Instagram. I have a founder account as well. So it's deep underscore in underscore DXB. DXB is a abbreviation for Dubai.
Mhm,
So yeah, find me on Instagram. I'm on TikTok at the same handle as well. I try and be fun and like fun to watch. So hopefully you enjoy my content as well. But yeah, reach out anytime. My DMs are open as they say.
mhm. Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Missy. I'm so excited I got to have you on, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate the time. It's been lovely talking to you, and yeah, when you're in Dubai, don't be that person who's like, oh, I was in
I'll be
Dubai,
there.
and then you don't say anything. Ah, okay,
No,
I'll know.
that's not my vibe. My vibe is like, I'm staying in your house and you didn't invite me, and I'll be there for many days. Like that.
Oh, didn't I tell you? I'm here for the week.
Yeah. Surprise.
So where do I sleep? Where do I
Exactly.